And welcome to this seminar. This seminar is called A Conversation About Mental Health, and that's what we're going to do today. We're going to have a conversation. I've got my cup of coffee. I encourage you at home to do the same, and we're going to have this chat. I'm delighted to welcome my friend Hannah here. Hello, Hannah.
Hello, Daniel.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing fine. I'm doing fine. So with this conversation about mental health, we can't cover everything. We understand that mental health is a huge topic. There's so many different angles to go at it with, and it's a huge thing, and we can't cover everything, but we hope that this conversation can perhaps be a starting point for you if you're struggling with your own mental health, a starting point maybe to reach out for help. And it might also just be a starting point for some people who are, leading teams, whether it's youth teams, kids teams, various church teams, maybe just to have a conversation with your team about this such an important topic of mental health. We know we can't cover everything. We've only got a short period of time, but hopefully it's a starting point and hopefully it is helpful. So yeah, Hannah, who are you? Tell us a bit about yourself.
Hello. I'm Hannah. I don't really know what to tell you. I recently got a puppy who is the love of my life. He's called That's called Theo. Theo meaning God. I am a theologian. I work for a think tank called Theos. It's based in London. Thanks for the joy, Daniel.
So you've got a dog called Theo.
Yeah.
You're a theologian.
Yeah.
You work for a think tank called Theos.
Yeah, I didn't really realise the whole God connection for a while.
You're so holy.
So holy. Triple points.
That's amazing.
Well, I'm not like official theologian yet, in the sense of I haven't got my PhD. So don't have my doctorate in theology just yet. But that's probably why Daniel's asked me to speak with you today, apart from me being his friend and he just wants to chat, my PhD is in mental health and theology. So I've been studying and looking at the stigma of severe mental illness, specifically bipolar disorder, in churches across the UK. So I've spent time speaking with people who have a diagnosis of bipolar disorder and just asking them how they have felt about their diagnosis in church communities, and have they experienced stigma. Spoiler, they have. And yeah, so now I'm trying to finish that up, but I also work at Theos, as I said. So I work as the science and religion researcher. So in that I am researching basically what are the interactions between science and religion. So how do people come to that topic? Where are the disagreements? Why are there disagreements? So I've been interviewing people like Brian Cox, which was really cool. He's a really lovely man.
Oh, wow.
So that's my humble brag.
So obviously you're doing your PhD on the topic of mental health, bipolar disorder, and the church. I've known you for quite a while now, a fair few years, and mental health has always been something that we've spoken about. Why is it that you're passionate about mental health?
It's a good question, and one that is going to sound really straight. My answer is going to sound really strange. I always was, but I was since the age of 13, I wanted to be a clinical psychologist. That was my dream. So going into school, I was determined that's what I was going to do. So I studied psychology undergrad at the University of Aberdeen and was determined again to be a clinical psychologist. Did not want to be a theologian, didn't want to, I became a Christian at 18, and I can go into that if that's relevant. Daniel knows. But yes, so I basically was always passionate about mental health and did psychology undergrad. And in that time, I met a professor called John Swinton, who does a lot on theology and mental health. He's basically a big forerunner in that area. And he invited me to do a PhD, which I said, no, leave me alone, don't want to do that. And he was like, we'll see how faithful you are. And I remember being at a church conference and hearing an audible word from God, which I had never heard before, which was, I called you to be faithful, not successful. And realised that a lot of my, I don't know if it's hopes or dreams. Like part of it, whilst I wanted to work in mental health and had done my counselling qualifications and all of that, was also it's like a successful career, right? So like whilst I wanted to do that, what was the core goal of that? Was it definitely to work in mental health, or, you know, and if you're a psychologist, it could become quite bureaucratic, you know, just working your way up the social ladder. So he had invited me to do a PhD in theology and mental health, which after I heard that, I was like, okay, I get the idea. There's a few other things that went on, but basically I felt a wee bit like Esther, where I was like, no, I don't want to do it. No. And he's like, go on now. And I did the actions before my heart followed, if you know what I mean. Similar to Esther, she went before the king before her heart was in it. And then now I'm studying theology and hoping to become a doctor in theology, and my main passion is theology and mental health, or theology and disability. My family kind of laugh at me because I can get quite emotional talking about things, specifically this, that my biggest drive, I think, for wanting to talk about mental health is people who feel isolated and alone and are outsiders. And I think that within the church, that mental health, people who experience mental health challenges, they are put in that category, the same with people who maybe don't experience the world in the same way we do, so have disabilities. So that's my big push, is to try and hopefully call the church back to a faithful, inclusive practice of proper love, which is hard. Loving one another is hard. It's not an easy thing to do. And I think we sometimes think it's easier than what it is, but to love one another and have a proper community is my real passion. And that's probably where the mental health comes in, is that I want people to have a community that loves them, supports them, and sees them at their worst, but believes the best and upholds them.
I love that is your heart. I do believe that that's the heart of Jesus, is he was here for the outsider, the ones on the fringes, the ones on the outskirts, the ones that actually people, whether in the religious communities or society, had cast away and said, you don't have a place. So absolutely love that. And that is, I believe, the heart of Jesus. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we go. I think the year that we've just had, 2020, has been an interesting one. I don't think we need to, look back on every part of it. It was clearly a difficult one for many people. And especially for mental health, for people's mental health, it's been a struggle. Like, how do you look back on the last year in regards to mental health, and what do you think some of the challenges might have been for some people that might have even been watching this today?
Yeah, I remember actually whenever lockdown started, we had a meeting in work and people were saying, what do you think is going to be the big effect of coronavirus? We had all just started working from home. And I remember being like, I think people's mental health, there's going to be nearly like a second pandemic or epidemic, whichever way you want to say it, of how in the UK and globally people's mental health will be affected by this. People were like, really? Do you really think so? And I was like, massively, yeah. Because, you're asking issues, obvious ones. People are going to feel isolated. You can't see your friends and your family if you are living alone, as has been talked about a lot, and you aren't able to go and see people. What do you do if your family situation at home isn't ideal to be there all the time, or is difficult, or makes your mental health poorer? That's hard. A lot of people get energy from and feel more supported by spending time with friends. I think obviously isolation is one of them. I think anxiety has massively shot up. I'm sure we're all guilty of it. Now I've started to not watch the news as much, but whenever it first happened, I'm sure all of us, or a lot of us, sat down and watched the Prime Minister's address. Or watched whatever was happening, kept a close tab on the news. And I think that created a lot of anxiety for different things, anxiety for your health, for the health of others that you care for just not knowing when life would quote unquote return to normal. And I think that the biggest thing that a lot of us have had to realize is that there is no normal or going back to, right? It's going to be a new normal, and life will be different from here on out. And I don't think that maybe we should seek the old normal, because there's still issues with our system, and there's still issues that we can maybe, because things have been stripped back, deal with. I think people being alone has led to a lot of reflection, but maybe reflection in the wrong way, because people are reflecting maybe not on the good parts of life, but on past mistakes, on experiences that have left them feeling maybe a bit broken.
Yeah.
And I think that basically that time spent alone has created this little vacuum in which people have become insular in their own thinking about what's happened, and it goes into this like spiral, and I'm aware all of us can spiral out of control. I do it a lot. I definitely, when I'm thinking about something, can spiral downwards. Obviously there's the other aspect of, as Daniel and I've talked about more on like a friendship level, suicides went up massively, especially here in Northern Ireland, and in young people. Like, that's traumatizing in and of itself. So I think that there's a whole bunch of things that I'm maybe not even touching on of how mental health affected people, but I think the big ones are the ones that have probably already been talked about: anxiety, bouts of depression, loneliness. And I think that sometimes they can be battered away as small issues, oh, you just feel isolated, but that actually can become a really serious issue and really detrimental to someone's inner person and their spirituality as well.
I remember coming into the new year, and you always come into the new year, one with a sense of, okay, it's a fresh start, but also like January itself is a hard month for so many people. Yeah. So the start of the year is always a mixed bag of emotions and feelings and hopes, but also it's dark, it's cold, it's easy to go into like a, feeling down, and especially if you've got something like depression or a mental health problem, January can be a hard start. But I remember last year coming into January with that mixed bag, having a fairly normal February, and then like everything's out the window kind of thing. I'm a youth pastor, and my heart is for young people, and seeing, in one sense, young people and all people are the most connected we've ever been, because you can pick up your phone, message someone, WhatsApp, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook. People are super connected. But we've known before a pandemic and a lockdown that actually, for so many people, you can be so connected on a phone, but actually you're so lonely. Looking back on the last few months, I think for young people, it's been really difficult. And, you mentioned the rise in suicide rates and things like that. And it is just heartbreaking to think that there are people out there that are in such a dark place that actually they don't see another way to get through it. And they kind of, that is the option that they take. And for us as the church, like, I think the church in general has had to rethink how we do things. Yeah. And I think we need to do that even more, because people are yearning and longing for community, young people especially, I think. They're looking for connection. They're looking for real, meaningful relationships. It comes back to what you said about people looking for community and looking for connection. And I think that we really do need to think, what does that look like even in a time where we can't do what we used to do for church, for youth ministry, for kids' work? How can we actually continue to connect with people and build those relationships and be there for people when you can't physically be there? That's been something that I've been thinking of the whole year. And now it felt as though we were coming to a point towards the end of the year where, we were back meeting a little bit in person. We got some youth gatherings happening, very minimal amount of people, but we were getting them consistently and seeing, the young people in person, which was amazing. And now we come into January, fresh start. Okay, let's go. Don't think so. We're locked down again. So it's just, it's been a tough one. And I think people are looking for hope, right? And especially when you're struggling with mental health, it must just it does feel, and I know it personally through having depression, having gone through many ups and downs this past year. For me, like, and for many people, to come into January again just with this feeling of, goodness me, like, people are looking for hope. They're looking for something, right?
I think they are. And I think one of the biggest things that I've learned this year is, I think we live in, this is maybe going off on a bit of a tangent, we live in a bit of a culture, well, not a bit of, we live in a culture that's a rat race. It's all about progressing, being busy, doing the next thing, and focusing on these expectations, especially as you're saying for young people. You know, there's expectations of grades, of how you get on at school, of what you're going to do next. I don't know if people have focused enough on how much of an upbringing this is for them. Their education obviously has taken a bit of a backseat because of Corona, and all of those implications, that their adolescence and their youth is not what they anticipated it being. You know, I can't imagine being a child in this day and age. Like, there's a wee, where I live at home, there's a little, 2 girls who are friends, and there must be like 6 or 7. And one of them sits in her driveway and the other one sits in her driveway, and they're maybe about 5 meters apart, and they play with their dolls and they shout over, and we can all hear them. But that's the way that all summer they could play with each other, because of obviously Corona. And it was really sweet, but also really heartbreaking when I was thinking, when I was 7 or 8, how would I have responded to not being able to go and play with my friends? Which sounds trivial, but like, that's a big thing, you know, that there is no socialization, or that they can't see their friends. I also think it's, if we go back to that period of expectation, that I myself had a lot of like expectations of what, as you're saying, this year's going to be like, a lot of hope for 2020, and you know, you felt guilty nearly that you weren't as productive as you wanted to be, or you didn't get things done, or you didn't see people, or all of that. And I think there needs to be a reminder that quarantine isn't holiday, right? You know, it's not as if you should be as productive. I think we all believed that we should be as productive during quarantine or during lockdowns or self-isolation as we would be on our best days. And there is like this overhanging, even if you don't have Corona or no one that you know has it or is affected by COVID, there's still like this overhanging anxiety that's around, like, globally, right? COVID. So that still will impact your mental health. And I think that, again, expectations. I know people are seeking hope, and I'm not saying that they shouldn't, but I think that we need to be comfortable with the fact that things are a bit meh at the moment. A sense of, you know, the Bible says more about lament and grieving than it does about being ecstatically happy. You know, you just need to look to the Psalms, and I think maybe not a place of hope, but a place of comfort at this time is looking back to the Psalms and seeing, okay, it wasn't a global pandemic, but how the psalmist writes about periods of inner turmoil. And, you know, they take that really seriously. I think it's Psalm 42, we always know the verse that says, as the deer pants for the water, oh, does my soul pant for you, O Lord. But 3 other times in that psalm that says, God, my soul is in turmoil within me. You know, I am so downcast. My soul, like, and that's actually the main point of that psalm, but that's forgotten about. And I think that that's how maybe a lot of us feel at the moment, is we are downcast, we are weary. And then towards the end of the psalm it says, still I will praise you. And whilst the psalmist writes that, and we think about it and we think, okay, in the next breath, still I will praise you, there could have been years in between those periods of turmoil to praise. I think we need to be not comfortable in the sense of be stagnant, but be aware that it's okay not be okay. And I know that's a really cliche saying nowadays, but that yes, those periods can bring about spiritual growth and renewal. And whilst it's crappy, if I'm allowed to say that word, there can be fruitfulness in what we discover from that. And I'm not saying that that's easy, and I don't want to be blasé about the fact that this is difficult, and difficult for many of us in really different reasons. But I think that I wouldn't be quick to push away the negative emotions, because the more you push away everything and not deal with it, it'll come out later, if that makes sense. And that's not me trying to say that anyone should dwell on it in an unsafe or problematic way, which we all can do if we continue to dwell, but maybe just, do you know what, I'm accepting that I am down today, and that's okay.
Yeah. I think that's a really brilliant almost tool for us to think of going into this new year and looking back on the past year. That the Psalms are that place that we can go to, and it gives us permission and it gives us a language to be at peace and be comfortable feeling like that. Now that can be, as you say, wow, the year really, really sucked, actually. And, you know, whether you struggle with mental health problems or not, like, I think everyone can agree that it wasn't the best year for most people. But for those of us that are maybe struggling ourselves, and there might be people watching here that are leaders and they are struggling and they have struggled. And I know for me, being a leader, one of the things that I've always felt, now I don't know if this was something that I feel a pressure from people, or whether it's, you know, people in church, or whether it's society, or whether it's just me in my own head feeling like I need to be on top of things. I need to be okay to an extent. Don't show weakness. Don't show that you're struggling. Like for me, the Psalms have been a place where actually, as you just said, you know, what did you say? It says,
my soul is in turmoil within me.
My soul is in turmoil within me. Like, he's not buttering it up. He's not saying, you know, actually, I'm seeking the Lord and all is well, and I will continue seeking. He's being real. He's being honest. He's being authentic. And we use these words in church. Let's be real. Let's be honest. Let's be authentic. What does it mean to be real? What does it mean to be honest? Well, it's literally letting out exactly how you're feeling, exactly what's going on. And I think that we maybe don't do that enough as leaders, as Christians, in church in general. You know, we perhaps don't give enough space for ourselves to be able to be honest. And as you say, in that psalm and in a number of psalms, it's not that he's just kind of ranting for no apparent reason. The point is he's ranting to God. Not even just ranting, but he's letting it out to God, right? And like, I think we need to do that more. And I think that we need to realize we can do that. We can be real with God, because he knows every single emotion and every single thing that you've been going through. So he's the safest place to do it. And I would encourage all of us, you know, whether we're struggling or perhaps just having a bad day, or whether we're in a bout of depression that just feels so hopeless, like, I would come to the Psalms, let yourself speak it out, get it out. As you say, if you just keep it in, like, that's not healthy. And if you never tell someone or tell God exactly how you are, there's going to be so much problems in that. And I would encourage people to come to the Psalms, as you say. It's an amazing place to be open, honest, and authentic. Gives us a language to speak to God exactly how you're feeling. My soul is in anguish. I'm feeling rubbish today. This has been a rubbish year. And it's almost like people feel as though they can't do that. Like, as a leader, like, okay, maybe I won't go up at the front of church and start my sermon kind of be like, I'm having a terrible day today. Life sucks. I'm down. You know, like, people probably be like, whoa, Deferg. But honestly, like, I feel like we need to have that space where we can say, listen, I'm actually in a really bad place right now. I'm struggling, but I'm going to come to God with it. I'm going to let it out. And it's going to, you know, the Psalms always end like, still I will praise you. Still my hope is in you. And that's an acknowledgement, I think, that, okay, so it's okay to be in a bad place, but when you're in that place, come to God. Like, when you're in that place, come to what he said. When you're in that place, come to the one who knows, and let it out to him. And that's the safest place to do it. Through the highs and the lows, we can still come to God, be honest with him, be real with him.
And the other thing, just I was thinking as you were speaking, was when you're saying, you know, as a leader, I would go to God, but I wouldn't go to church. I think it's also vital that there are people in churches for leaders to go to say that it is, maybe they're not from the same church, maybe it's a prayer buddy from somewhere else, but there's someone that you can say those things to the same way you would say them to God, and there is no judgment. That's something that's really hard for leaders. Well, I remember whenever I was a leader in the church I used to attend, I found it really hard to say I was struggling with something because I was doing like 5 things and leading these different ministries. And I was like, well, it's okay, we'll just pray about it. And that, I'm not saying that prayer isn't good and useful, but there needs to be more. And you need someone who will actively listen. You, and if you're in a pit, that they'll descend down a ladder and sit with you and help you get back up it, rather than standing from the top saying, oh, it's okay, don't worry. You need someone to come down and be with you in that. Especially leaders at the moment. I'm sure there's so many people who are listening that are struggling from burnout, from being overwhelmed, from having their own anxieties and caring them for others. There needs to be a continuation of care for leaders as well. I think that's sometimes something that can be really easily overlooked.
As a leader, I think there has been a sense that you do feel a little bit guilty if you're spending time and effort making almost giving yourself time to maybe go and see someone or to chat with someone or to seek help, because you're always like, this is just my experience, might not be for everyone, but your eyes automatically, you're going to like work mode. Your head's in work mode, your vision's in work mode. You're kind of like, right, are they okay? Like, I need to care for this person. And you automatically are the person that might say, listen, pal, I know you're in a dark hole. I'm here for you. And then you just end up neglecting yourself. And it's way too easy.
Yeah. And the other thing is, whenever you're caring for other people, it's really easy to take on their baggage.
Yeah.
And their emotions. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that. I think it's really important to be empathetic. I think that if we go back to the heart of Jesus, that is what he did. But also if we look at the heart of Jesus, he sat with people. He didn't ask them to change. He didn't say, you need to do this, you need to do that. He sat with them. So like if we look at the Samaritan woman, for example, the woman at the well, someone who was completely opposite from Jesus, someone who would never have encountered Jesus, who was completely downcast, who was an outcast from her society, who was heavily stigmatized. Jesus approaches her in a way that's gentle in asking her for water. And I think that in that interaction with her, you see the gentleness of Jesus coming alongside someone who's completely different from him and sitting with and speaking with her. And there's not this element of judgment. I don't know how to put it, but there's just like a genuine connection is what you're saying. And I think that's something that also needs to be there for leaders, and that people will listen to each other without judgment, but that there's also maybe someone who's there to say, you don't need to carry the burdens of all of these people that you care for. And I think that that's, as you're saying, your eyes are looking outward, you're thinking, are they taken care of? Are they taken care of? Are they taken care of? You need someone to remind you to take care of yourself. And I don't know, that'll be different people for different stages of life, I'm sure, and different things. Might be someone in work who tells you to take care of yourself in a work capacity. It might be your partner or your parent or your brother or sister who tells you to take care of yourself at home. But this is another cliched thing. There's a reason that whenever planes have an emergency landing, you're told to put on your oxygen mask first, because once you have that, you can help others. And if we're not taking care of ourselves, we can't help people as well as they deserve. It's not just about being selfish, which I think sometimes we can think it is, like taking care of ourselves is selfish. Actually, to care for people well means that you need to care for yourself.
I remember when I first went to the GP, when I first went and booked an appointment. I didn't even book an appointment, actually. It was I kind of did it by mistake, but I was going in to see my regular doctor.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
No, it wouldn't, would it? But I was in to see my regular doctor about nothing to do with my own mental health. I was in the waiting room waiting for him to call my name, as you do. And then this completely different voice said, Daniel Ferguson. And it was a female doctor. And I was like, hold on a minute, like, you've changed, like, what the heck's happened here? And she said, sorry, your doctor, your regular doctor can't meet you today, but if you're fine, like, I can meet you. And so we went into the room and had a chat, and, that you could see that as being a total accident and fluke, as I say, but actually I think God was in it, because I've met that doctor now coming up probably 10 years.
Wow.
And it's the same doctor that I continually go back to talk about mental health stuff with. And it was, that first day we just chatted, and she probably just saw things from a different angle, and we started to talk about my mental health. And I remember one of the things that she said was, listen, Daniel, you need to go, like, my wife is called Becky, and she was like, you need to go and, just have time with Becky, like go to the cinema. She kept telling me to go to the cinema. I don't know if she just thought that was an easy thing to do, but she was like, go to the cinema with Becky, book a holiday with Becky, book time off with Becky, and I was just like, wow, like, okay, so you're almost giving me permission now as my doctor and my GP to tell me you need to take care of yourself. You need to go and do something fun for you, not related with the youth at the church. Fun doesn't mean, I'm going to put on a movie night for the kids. Like, we're going to all come together. It's going to be fun. Yeah, it's going to be fun, but you're still in work mode. You're still like, you need to do something for you, away from work, away from everything else, away from church. You need to actually have time for you to take care of yourself. And that's something that I would encourage people. There's 100% a need to have people that are going to walk with you through life, real people, like maybe friends or people that are older than you, or, as you say, it might be different people at different times in your life, but you need people that can walk with you, or at least know what you're going through, that can sit with you, lift you up, almost be in the trenches with you in those dark places. You need that. And the church can be 100% a place that we can do that for each other. And there might be someone that you just need to reach out to and say, listen, I need to let you in. Can you walk with me? Brilliant. But I also think we need to realize that actually there's other people that are there that can support you. Now, God has been a constant help through my journey of mental health. He's been a constant refuge and a safe place. The scriptures, as you say, the Psalms, an amazing place that I can come, that I can be honest and real with God. People, I love people most of the time. And people can be amazing to walk with you. But you also, I think we need to realize that there's people out there that are professional, doctors, GPs, that can help us, and that, it might just be a different angle. And for me, my GP has been a lifeline, and my doctor, and, the chats that we've had, and the medical help that I've, sought and had from her and from the NHS has actually been a part of my continual, life, and a part of my, healing, as slow as it might be, just from those dark times. I mean, the dark times when you're really bad, and actually getting up and your head's above the water. And that was amazing, because actually my GP knew nothing about the church. And a lot of what I was feeling was actually trouble or struggles or hard times that were related to the church, were related to what was going on, related to my role, my job. And actually she would just come in and be like, tell me what it is. And sometimes you might feel reluctant to tell someone at your church,
yeah, that's so true,
what is going on. And, you might have your boss or your line manager or whoever, and you might feel guilty to say, actually, listen, the issue that I have is with you, or with what you've done here, or what they've done here, and there's a lot of, you're almost too tied into it. And I find that for me, like, so easy for everything just to be, everything's to do with the church, and to come out and to speak to a doctor who doesn't know anyone at the church, who doesn't know what you, and she's just like, why are you letting that happen? And I'm like, sorry. She's like, well, you need to tell them that isn't good for you, or you can't do that, or you don't do that. Tell them you're going for a break. Tell them you're going on holiday. And I was like, okay, right. And it brought a different angle, and you almost feel permission when your doctor tells you, you need to do this. And sometimes at church, someone might be like, listen, you cannot carry that burden for someone. You can't do that. You need to do this. But actually, when a doctor tells you, there's like an authority there, like, from a medical point of view, where you're like, actually, okay, my doctor's told me that I need to be a bit more structured, or I need to be a little bit more, my day off's my day off, or I'm rambling. People can absolutely help us. Prayer, coming to God can absolutely help us. you know, the scriptures can, of course, absolutely help us when we're struggling with mental health. But I also think there's such a place that there's help available from professionals who can help us along the way. And I think we maybe sometimes in the church maybe push that option to the side because prayer will fix it. Well, prayer can fix it and prayer is so important, but actually God has given us medical professionals that know a lot more about it than I do and anyone at church might do. And we need to realize that and have a place for that too.
Totally agree with everything you just said. With my own mental health journey, without saying too much, if I did not have my own medical care, I would not be here, would be the very simple way of putting it.
Yeah.
If I didn't have a doctor to intervene and realize that my physical issues were sometimes related to my clinical depression, I probably wouldn't have picked it up myself because I just thought I was just being lazy.
For sure.
So yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think it's important to have people out with the church, not only in mental health, but in life. I think you need to not only have your church friends, but there needs to be a bigger, not bigger community necessarily, but different connections.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, totally. Mental health has, of course, been such a topical thing in society over the past few years. It's been really good that there's been a lot more awareness being brought to it, which is great. And even in church, I know that there certainly has been a lot more talk about it. There's been a lot more mention of it. From my own point of view, I think that it can sometimes be a little bit of like a buzzword where, you know, people say, they'll mention mental health, they'll talk about it, you know, take care of yourself, you know, mental health. But actually, it's good to talk about it, but it's more important that we do something about it. And for some of us that are watching today, you might be struggling, or you might have people that you know that are struggling. You know, we're just touching on the surface of all this, but I think what we would love to encourage people to do is to actually not just mention it or not just have a sermon once a year on mental health, but actually for the topic of mental health to be something that is intrinsically a part of your church life and your church community. Because as human beings, we will all, whether we all have mental health, as we all know, and there'll be days where we are up and there'll be days that we're down, and that's without clinical depression or anxiety or something else. We need to have a space to do something, to talk about it, to make it more than just a kind of, okay, I've done my mental health talk. Okay, it's January, you know, mental health day, or, you know, Blue Monday or whatever it is. Okay, we'll do something to do with that. But actually, I would love to see church communities all over the country and all over the world actually having mental health as being something that's not just a topic that we catch every once in a while, but actually something that we seriously take more attention to and we put more effort into making it part of your DNA, I suppose, as a church. And I would encourage us as leaders to look at that, and for your own mental health, seek that help, whether it's professional, and I think it's a combination, right? I think that if you're struggling with your mental health, I think you need it all. Like, I think you do need to go, primarily, you need to go to the doctor. If you've never been to a GP and you're struggling, and you're maybe not doing it because you've got ideas of, okay, I can't show weakness as a Christian leader, you know, sack that off straight away and go to your doctor. It's good to do it, right? You'd be surprised at how many church leaders are on antidepressants and a high dosage of it. I am one of those. There's no shame in it. There shouldn't be. And, you know, if we can give you permission, in a sense, to do that, I'm not someone that has the authority to give you permission, but all I'm saying is, listen, seek that help. You know, go to the doctor primarily, speak to someone at church, get stuck into the Psalms, as you were saying, Hannah, and seek that help, because we need to make sure that we're doing that for ourselves, but also for our teams and for the people that we're leading. We need to create a space where actually, whether it's us giving that support or whether we can encourage them to seek support from other areas, I think we need to do that. And I think we need to turn our attention to that more. And, you know, we can't have all the answers overnight, but even if we just make a conscious effort to do more, I think that would be helpful. Have you came across any kind of resources or stuff that perhaps people can do as churches or as leaders or as teams? Is there anything that you would kind of recommend? That's a huge question, but maybe like one thing or a couple of things.
I think you probably know where my first answer would be is Sanctuary Mental Health are an incredible charity. They're based in Vancouver. They've recently branched into the UK, but they have an online resource which has 10 weeks worth of videos and resources and information to discuss mental health. And it's trying to place mental health in a way that can be more accessible, well, mental health resources more accessible, but also for churches, it's free to download. You can work through it with a group. There's, as I say, videos and there's questions that can be done and you can discuss things. And it's just a bit of a resource to help you talk about it and think about it. You know, there's people, I feel like I'm weirdly bragging. I speak on it, on some of the issues. There's other people like professors from like Harvard and stuff speaking on things. There's people's real life experiences. It's got a whole range of different ways to look at mental health and different aspects of mental health. You know, it goes from what is a mental health challenge to stigma to community. You know, there's so many different aspects, and that's a really great tool. There's also as well the Mind and Soul network that's in the UK. They're great. They've also got things called like a Dealing with Depression course and EID course that I believe can all be run in churches. They've got really good, you know, blogs and things. So I think that they would be my two main things. There's obviously different things depending on where you are in the country.
For sure.
Which is what's hard as well, because I think nationally there's not as much as there is maybe in smaller pockets. Certain areas and certain churches definitely deal with things sometimes better than others. I think, the biggest thing to take away is to talk to someone, as you said, Daniel, and I think to relinquish the idea that you are struggling and it's your fault you're struggling. I think that's a really big thing that people feel, is that they begin to blame themselves for feeling a certain way, especially when it comes to mental health. You're not to blame. And I think that that's something people should remember, and the church should definitely remember, not because of sin or because they're being punished or because necessarily of spiritual warfare. And, you know, there's a combination of things that go into mental health. There could be spiritual, but there's also biological and social issues that can impact someone's mental health journey. And I think that one of the things that, when we're talking about the church, and you know, it being about mental health being a buzzword, you know, the church says it's there to care for people and it'll care for people's needs, and it does that so well whenever it comes to more maybe physical things, like someone's in hospital or, you know, someone's struggling financially, but mental health also needs to be cared for, and we're called to care for each other in a way that I believe is a holistic way, meaning the whole of the person, and to care for the whole of the person is to care for their mental and physical needs and their spiritual needs. I don't think that things should be as separated as they are, because, you know, your spiritual life will impact probably your physical life and your mental health. Your mental needs and capabilities will affect your physical and your spiritual. You know, everything more intertwined, and I think we can be led to believe, because as we say, when you go to the doctor, sometimes physical things seem they can be quote unquote cured much easier. But, you know, again, going back to your thing about antidepressants and the amount of people that are on them, if you had a pain in your leg and you needed to take pain medication every day, or allergies, for you to be able to function and continue with life in a comfortable manner, you would do so. It's the same with mental health and taking, be that antidepressants, antipsychotics, going to therapy, whatever it is.
Well, that's it, isn't it? And as you say, there's something in, it's almost, it would be easier if you've got a broken wrist, or if you've got iron deficiency, or you've got something else physical. It's easier to go in and feel no shame at all getting medical help. But actually, for your own mental health, why is it different? Just because you can't see it, we make it into something different. A whole area that is really good, especially for Christian leaders, is an area that perhaps isn't maybe tapped into enough, and maybe it should be, and maybe it should be more formalized, but other Christian leaders who are maybe further down the road, or maybe have gone through some of these things that people are going through right now, and to have a support network there for Christian leaders who are struggling. And, you know, I'm a youth pastor. My dad was a pastor at the church up here that we're a part of for about 38 years. And he had a constant struggle with severe depression. And, you know, something that he's doing, he's retired now, but something that he's got a passion for is actually to help Christian leaders who are struggling with their mental health. And almost, he's not a professional, he's not, you know, all that stuff, but he's got a passion actually just to come alongside those that might struggle, because he's someone that has and does struggle and has been a leader in the church for all those years. And he's started up a website as well called Black Dog Collar Pastor, and, you know, we'll link that. But even just someone that, the idea is what I'm getting at really, is having people who have gone before and struggled and maybe still struggle. You're not alone. And I think that's the comfort, is that if you're a leader in church or someone that leads outside of church, and that you're going through something difficult and it's with regarding your mental health, you're not alone. There's people that do care. There's people that can help. And there's people that have walked a similar path, that have gone through those hard times, and they're still here to tell the tale, and they're people want to help. Is there anything else that you would like to, you know, share just to close with? Or
there's a few things. The biggest one is to find something that gives you life. It's a question we get asked in work every week. What gives you life, or what has brought you life? It can be as simple as, I bought really good coffee this week. For me, a lot of what brings me joy is my puppy, even though he runs around the house with my socks and bit out there, but hides my underwear in his crate, and I have to wrestle it off him. But it brings me a lot of joy and a lot of life. Another thing for me was I took up digital drawing, but one thing that I felt has helped me really feel connected to people in a way that's really intentional is I've taken up writing letters. I used to love writing letters, and I think that it's like a lost art form, but that's just me going on a tangent in a different way. There's an intentionality about in comparison to sitting down and writing someone a text. And I think that, maybe that's something that you could do, is to write some people that you love who you think might be struggling a letter. We all love posts, don't we? And I think it's, I've found it really lovely when someone's written me one. You know, that vice versa, whenever I've written letters to my friends, they seem to have enjoyed them. So it's maybe a thought.
Absolutely. Listen, that's the end of our conversation about mental health. As we said at the start, this is just a starting point, and hopefully it can be a starting point for you to seek help, or just to get that conversation going with your teams and with your churches. We hope it's been a help. There's going to be a lot more chat after this seminar in a Zoom call, I believe, so we can continue that chat after that. Thank you.